Where's the microphone? There it is. How are we? Hope you've been good. Hope you're well. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name is Konso Kijo, and this page Inspire YG was created with the hope to inspire people out there, and especially young people. That's pretty much why I called it Inspire YG. Yeah, I do have a Facebook page, Inspire YG, Instagram as well, Inspire YG, if you want to check those out. Mostly I just post encouraging messages, but I also post messages that will link people on YouTube and vice versa. Yeah, today I thought I'd jump on here and talk a little bit about a culture shock. Now, for most people who traveled outside their country, it doesn't have to be outside the continent, but just somewhere else where people have a different culture. There is something called culture shock, where it's something that goes against the norm to you, whatever norm even means. But basically, whatever is done from where you're from. I mean, it can be different in somewhere else. The same thing done from where you're originally from. When you move countries or you move states or you move towns, something can be different. So today I'm going to talk about something I called CCS, Currency Culture Shock, which is something I created because it's something I faced. So before moving to Australia 7 years ago, I had never thought about, if you walk into Kenyan banks and you look at there's a wall, there's a screen when you walk normally near the receptionist, and you see a currency board, an exchange currency board. So I always used to say different currencies. I could say Ugandan currency converted to Kenya shillings, the rate. I could say American dollars, I could say euro, pounds. Sometimes some banks have got pounds, but I never saw Australian. I never saw the Australian dollar. So it's not something that that came when I was doing research on some of the things that I need to be aware of before I got here. Currency was not in my radar. It wasn't in the list of the things I was concerned about. But it's because sometimes something that is not in your thought process or something that is not discussed around you, you probably not be motivated, or you probably not even remember to do that kind of research. And it's not even one of the questions that I asked when I talked about rent. I asked about accommodation, I asked about transport, I asked about school fees, I asked about all other things, but I never asked about the money that was required to pay all those things, or just how the currency works. So let me tell you a little bit of stories with my experience with currency culture shock. First and foremost, I think generally life in Australia is expensive as a continent, but some states are more expensive than others. So for instance, I have lived in I have traveled to a couple of states within Australia. Not many, but obviously I live in Sydney. I've been to Brisbane, I've been to Cairns, and the cost of living in Cairns is very different with the cost of living in Brisbane, as well as the cost of living in Sydney. Now, Cairns from my experience where we went, it was a conference, so I wasn't there for a long time, but I understood it is very much a tourist destination. So the place where we were was a bit expensive. Everything was it was more expensive than even in Sydney, but later on I came to understand that it's because there are a lot of tourists that go there, especially around winter, because they have beautiful weather. When everybody else is freezing, they're enjoying it's more like tropical, kama weather ya Thika. Like in Kenya, we have really good weather that is not too hot, not too cold. But then you come to Sydney, and my experience was a bit different because I was comparing. Every time I went to a shop, and I had to buy an avocado. Just one avocado would be like $5. Now I was actually doing the math today. For those who know me, I really don't like mathematics. Sort of the classes, I still question why I had to learn about x times y is equals to, I don't even want to go there anyway. But I did a bit of mathematics, and it's funny because I sat down and I thought, before I moved to Australia, I used to work for a real estate agent agency, and it was somewhere in the outskirts of Nairobi, and the rent I used to pay was 10,000. It was a bed sitter. For those who don't know, a bed sitter is like, it wasn't my room wasn't, my house wasn't even my house. Ooh, my room wasn't too tiny because it was big. I had a big bed, and it had a kitchen area. It had a separate room that had a bathroom, that I could do my, I could do my washing. It had a big cabinet, so it was really decent for a bed sitter. And I used to pay 10,000, and that's well over 12, 13 years ago. So it wasn't too bad. But when I converted 10,000, I used to pay that per month. So that's around 135 Australian dollars. Then when I moved to Sydney, the first place I moved to, because in Sydney, this is how especially accommodation works for international students. And when I say this, I'm not even going to speak on behalf of all international students, because some international students live inside the university, which is very different. There are student quarters, so the way they pay, I'm not sure the dynamics, whether you pay that together with your school fees, tuition fee, I have no idea. But for those of us who rent outside uni, it's different. Now that depends on, the accommodation becomes expensive based on how your proximity to the city. If you're close to the city, the more expensive it will be. The further you are from the city or the major towns, the decent price you might pay. Now when I say decent price, I mean in Sydney, normally things like rent, it's counted on weekly basis, at least all the places I've lived so far. And I have stories about accommodation that I'll share, because people struggle with many things, jobs, surviving. I struggled with accommodation. That's a whole video for another day. But the rent was 170 per week. When I calculated today, with the rate that is around $70 to $73, like $1, converted that to Kenya shillings, around 70 to 73 Kenya shillings, I was paying about $12,570. So between 12,000 and 13,000 Kenya shillings per week. That means my rent per month was between 50 to 60K. Now, that is actually considered cheap, because for those who know Sydney, that's just like one room. I'm just getting one room in like a house or like an apartment. Because if you're going to take an apartment by yourself, you're paying something like anything between 300 to 500 Australian dollars. That's per week. So your rent could clearly be, close to 100K if you're not careful, based on where you're living. Now that's rent. That was shock, because I used to convert it. I faint, I wake up, I pay it. I go back to living. I wait for another month. I see the rent. I converted it to Kenya shillings. I faint. I get up again. that was my story. Now, things like avocado. Now, avocado is very cheap in Kenya. I remember growing up, like, I think then those days we used to even buy avocados for 5 cents. For 5 shillings. Avocado right now could be going, like when I was in Kenya not too long ago, last year, we were getting avocados like 10 shillings to 15 shillings. You have one avocado or two avocados based on where you are. And that's like literally one avocado or two avocados for 14 cents. In Sydney, I was going to a supermarket and I want to buy an avocado. An avocado will be going for like $5. And when it's on special, you get like $2.50 or $3. And two for $5. So you're still literally buying that avocado for $5. Because if you're only getting it on special if you buy 2. So what that means is one avocado goes for 360 to I mean 200 to 370 Kenya shillings, one avocado. I had never, like, I know avocado is big, but I did not realize like my relationship with avocado will be jeopardized, but it was. Now, you, I'm just talking about rent. I'm talking about one avocado. I've not talked about bread. I've not talked about milk. All the essential goods are quite expensive. And the funny thing in Sydney, what I found is the healthy foods are more expensive than unhealthy foods. So it would actually cost me more if I go to a shop and buy groceries, buy vegetables, fruits, let's say pineapple, mango, the normal fruits we have, bananas, and maybe I put some spinach or just some vegetables, potatoes. When I go and pay that, it will cost me more than just buying one box of pizza. So sometimes as students, people opt to go for those fast foods because it's more cheaper and more affordable than to buy the fresh foods. But sometimes I was just thinking, I was thinking long term. I really don't like fast food, and I don't like to have it on a daily. It makes me feel sick. I love fruits. I love vegetables. More than I even love meat. It's very weird when you're a Kenyan and you say you don't love meat. And not to say that all Kenyans love meat, it's just that a lot of people love meat. But it was expensive, and it's like it took me a while to realize that, look, I have to prioritize my health, and it doesn't matter, because I would rather work harder and make sure that I eat healthy as opposed to vice versa, because then that's going to be more expensive for me over in the long term. Like, if I start worrying about weight issues and health issues and things like that, then there's things like credit. So I used to use, I'm not gonna have to talk about the subscriber I used to use because I'm not marketing anyone here. But the subscriber I had at the time, it was the cheapest ticket, the cheapest I would have bought. The card was $10. That's something that's an equivalent to that's $10, an equivalent of 700 to 1,000 Kenya shillings. That's just one call. I would put a credit of $10 and I'll call my mom, and that's it. That's done. Next time I'm calling her, I had to put another $10. And my mom at the time did not like internet. She still doesn't. So it was hard for us to communicate. I had to literally buy the airtime. Then there's transport. We use something called Oppo card. I don't have my Oppo card here. I would have shown you. I think I've shown my Oppo card before in a different. Oh yeah, I've shown an Oppo card before. This is Oppo card. Now this is what we use as international student. You don't get. See, there's adult. I don't know whether it's focused. Yeah, adult fee. So, I mean, yeah, you don't have concession. What that means is local students can get concession. You as an international student, you don't. You have to pay like an adult. And it's more expensive anyway. So the cheapest, so anything between, if you're traveling for 65 plus kilometers, you're gonna pay anything between $8 to $10 on one trip, and obviously that's expensive. Then so counting, when you look at food based on what you're buying, if you're spending anything between $100 and $400, that's literally about 30,000 Kenya shillings a month. I haven't included rent. Oh, I talked about rent, obviously. I talked about phone bill. Then you haven't included medical insurance. Medical insurance, if you're an international student, at the time it costed me $2,000, and it says 2,000 and something on top, and that is a prerequisite for your visa. You do have to have a medical cover, and you haven't thought about savings. If you're driving, that's an extra, because you have to think about things like radio and obviously servicing your car and fuel and all that. There's extra curriculum if you want to do things like any activity you want to take on, movies, going out with friends, or swimming, or things like that, or gym membership. All those things that's an extra expense. And if you're sending money home, the remittance, that's also another extra expense. So and I haven't even mentioned about school fees, which at the time when I started off, I was in a smaller college, and the school fees was about $4,000 per semester. And and when you go to uni, it's something between it's close to 10 grand, so you're paying 9,000 and something on top per semester, and there are 2 semesters per year. Sorry, so the school fees would cost you anything between 200k to 700k, and if you're doing courses that are marketable like nursing or engineering, then you might be looking at 800 to a million Kenya shillings. So it's doable, but it's not for the light-hearted. Now, when I did that math, I was just thinking about, some people have asked me, some of my friends have asked me, can someone just come and support themselves? Can you come here and work and support yourself? Yes, you can, but I think it's good if you can get support from your parents as well, especially for the school fees part, and because then you can help each other, like your parents can help you and you can help them, because it's a bit hard. Students have got work limitations, like you can only work 20 hours a week when classes are in session, but you can work infinite times. I mean, you don't have restrictions when schools are closed, but then you're more time you're in school than you like the schools are in session longer than you're on holidays. So apart from summer holiday, which is normally between December and Feb, that's when you can maybe work a lot of shit to support yourself. But I mean, when you look at what I've just talked about, if you have school fees on top, it's a killer. That's why people wonder why people have to do 2 or 3 jobs, because sometimes people have to do that to know, especially when you're trying to develop yourself, you're trying to be self-independent, and you're trying to work hard and not depend on your parents back home, because like, as you can see, the money is expensive. Like I was talking about, it's hard to see banks that are converting or that are selling Australian dollars. So sometimes, even when I needed help, and maybe I was getting help from my mom, it was a bit hard for her to be able to buy Australian dollars in Kenya, because just most banks don't sell Australian dollars, and even if they do, it's expensive. So yeah, today I just thought I'd talk about that. That was my experience with what I call currency culture shock. If you've gone through anything like that in any other country you've been to, let me know how your experience was. I hope that gives you a bit of light on the differences between expenses in Kenya. I'm going to talk about Kenya, expenses in Kenya and expenses in Australia, Sydney especially, and I hope that added value. And until the next time, I'll be good. I hope you stay positive, stay around positive people, be positive yourself, be kind to everyone, and until next time, God bless, and see you on the next one. Bye.